They shoved her. Not because she broke a rule, not because she caused trouble, but because of one sentence she said out loud. "My mother serves in special operations." That was it. One calm truth from a 12-year-old girl during a school family meeting, and the mood flipped instantly. They accused her of lying, sneered at her, laughed right in her face, and then their kid slammed a foot into her shin hard enough to bruise. They assumed no one important saw it happen. But then the door opened, and the woman they claimed wasn't real stepped inside. She didn't yell. She didn't threaten. She didn't even change her expression. But what she did next rewrote how that school treated her daughter forever. Now, before we show you the moment a room full of uniformed parents realized exactly who they underestimated, and how this elite Navy mother restored her child's dignity without saying a word, drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. Hit like, subscribe, and tap the bell. Because this story isn't about revenge, it's about control. The fluorescent lights hummed softly in the multipurpose hall at Oak Ridge Community Academy, washing everything in a pale, unforgiving glow. Plastic folding chairs lined up unevenly. PTA flyers sat smeared with coffee rings. It was 6:07 p.m. The meeting was already running late, but no one seemed bothered. Parents continued to drift in with oversized handbags, restless younger siblings, and polite smiles stretched thin. Adhesive name tags clung to blouses and polo shirts. Someone poured room-temperature punch into foam cups near the exit. Lena Morales sat along the far wall, ankles crossed tight, spine straight despite the metal chair pressing into her back. She was 12, slight for her age, dark hair braided neatly down her shoulder. A thin folder lay flat against her knees, held firmly as if it might escape. Her eyes darted toward the door every few seconds. Once. Twice. Again. Still no sign of her mother. She hadn't eaten much since noon, but it wasn't hunger twisting her stomach. It was something heavier. Pressure, not fear. Around her, other students glowed with parental attention. "My dad flew in just for tonight," one girl whispered proudly. A boy pointed toward his father's crisp camouflage uniform, clearly enjoying the attention it drew. Everywhere Lena looked, someone had someone. She just had a folder. Near the center tables sat a tight group of adults who clearly ran things here. 4 parents who spoke too loudly and laughed too often. 2 were Marine fathers, broad shoulders, close-cropped hair, ID badges clipped at their belts. Their spouses dominated the conversation, trading stories about deployments, base gossip, and whatever school drama annoyed them last year. They treated the meeting like a briefing room. One woman glanced toward Lena. "Guess someone got ditched," she said, not bothering to lower her voice. The man beside her smirked. "Or her mom stuck in traffic from wherever imaginary parents commute from." Snickers followed. Lena didn't look over. Her grip on the folder tightened just a little. "Miss." Harlan, the well-meaning but perpetually overwhelmed teacher, clapped her hands with an uncertain smile. "All right, let's settle in. We'll start our quarterly progress check. Students, thanks for being here. This takes courage." Polite laughter rolled through the room. Lena straightened even more. Still no sign of her mom, but she knew she was coming. She always did, sometimes late, never absent. Lena held onto that certainty like armor no one else could see. Names were called like attendance, but for parents. "Miss." Harlan asked each student to stand, say their name, and introduce the adult who came with them. Something about building community. "Let's remember we're all on the same team," she said, smiling too hard. Lena didn't feel like she belonged to any team, not tonight. One by one, students stood. "I'm Jordan. That's my mom. She's PTA secretary. I'm Amir. My dad just got back from overseas." Applause followed each introduction, easy approval for showing up. Then Miss Harlan looked toward Lena. "Lena, you're up." Lena rose slowly, folder still in her hand. Her voice was steady, though quiet. "My name is Lena Morales," she said. "My mom's running late. She's Navy Special Operations." The room went silent, but not respectfully. It was the kind of pause that tilts before turning. One Marine dad let out a short laugh. Another parent snorted openly. Miss Harlan blinked. "Oh, well, I'm sure she'll arrive soon." But it was already too late. "Did she say special ops?" Someone muttered. A woman with oversized earrings raised an eyebrow. "Honey, those people don't come to school meetings." Laughter followed. Another man added louder. She's been watching too many action movies. Lena sat back down without expression. A parent leaned toward her friend. That's not real. Women don't do that, right? One Marine father shrugged. If they exist, they're not sitting in middle school cafeterias. Soft laughter rippled through that side of the room. She really is, Lena said quietly, more to the desk than to them. She's on base, training today. A woman tilted her head with mock sympathy. It's okay to admit you made it up. Lena didn't flinch, but her shoulders folded inward just slightly. Maybe she meant a desk job, someone added. Those wear uniforms, too. Even a few kids were smiling now, not out of cruelty, but because they were copying the adults around them, and that was when the door opened. They mirrored their parents' moods the way people read the weather. Miss. Halvorsen tried to move things along, calling on another student, but something had already shifted. Lily kept her gaze forward, fingers tightening around her folder. No tears, no arguments, just waiting because her mother was a Navy SEAL and she would arrive. The meeting paused for a 10-minute break. Parents drifted toward the coffee urn. Kids spilled into the hallway, linking the multipurpose room to the classroom wing. Adult chatter leaked into the corridor, blending with locker clangs and sneakers squeaking on worn wax. Lily slipped out quietly, hugging her folder to her chest. She sat on a bench halfway down the hall near the lost and found bin and an anti-bullying poster that felt more decorative than real. Head down, braid tucked over one shoulder. If she stayed small, maybe she'd disappear. She didn't. The same cluster of parents, the Marines and their partners, stepped into the hallway with the loud certainty of people convinced no one would challenge them. Their teenage son and daughter followed, voices raised, fingers pointing at nothing funny. Marine Dad number 1 spotted Lily at once. There's our storyteller. His wife smirked. Still no mom. Maybe she tried swimming over from Coronado and ran out of steam. The boy snorted as they closed in. Lily stood, planning to leave, but Marine Mom Renata shifted just enough to block her path like it was an accident. Whoa there, she said, honey sweet, razor sharp. No need to rush. Marine Dad Nate leaned closer. Let's hear it again, he said. Tell us your mom's a SEAL. We could use the laugh. Lily's voice barely carried. She is. The boy flicked her folder with 2 fingers, careless, deliberate. It slipped free, papers fluttering across the floor like loose feathers. Math quizzes, a permission slip, a progress report she'd been proud of. Oops, he said. My bad. Lily dropped to her knees at once, gathering the papers with trembling hands. She didn't ask for help. She didn't look up. SEAL kids don't crumble that fast, one of the dads muttered. His wife added, maybe her mom's supply. Kids love to exaggerate. Lily tried to stand, but the teenage girl drifted into her way, smiling thinly. Say it again, she demanded. Say your mom's a Navy SEAL. I don't want to. Lily said softly. Marine Dad number 1 crouched to her level. Because it's a lie. It's not, Lily whispered. The boy nudged her shin with his sneaker, light, precise. She flinched. No teachers noticed. The hallway was a blind spot, doors shut, adults distracted. One of those places where cruelty could breathe. Lily hugged the folder to her chest again. Please stop, she whispered. She really is. They laughed, and somewhere down the hall the air grew heavier, the kind that meant something was about to snap. Lily crouched on the cold tile, collecting the last of her papers, steadying her hands, hiding her face. The page with her science grade was creased now. She smoothed it flat with her palm. The boy still loomed. So, he said, low and mocking, you gonna cry or salute? She didn't look up. Then he moved. One calculated step forward, not enough to knock her down, just enough. His sneaker struck her shin above the ankle sharp, intentional, enough to bruise, enough to warn. Her elbow clipped the locker as she recoiled. Another page slid free. She gasped, quick, broken, but didn't scream. The sound echoed anyway. The Marine Dad grinned. If she were really a SEAL's kid, she'd take it better. Lying makes you weak, his wife said, fake concern dripping. Laughter followed. Even the girl smirked, arms crossed. Lily sat frozen, knees tucked in, folder pressed to her chest like a life raft. Pain bloomed in her shin, dull and spreading. She wiped her eyes with her sleeve. Stop, she whispered. Please. That only encouraged them. Marine Mom Renata stepped closer. Or what, Lily, gonna call in the SEALs? Have your imaginary mom repel through the ceiling? Another laugh. Another tap of a shoe, not a kick, just a shove, like she was baggage in the way. A student passed at the far end of the hall and kept walking. Eyes forward. Ears closed, then came the phone. The boy lifted it casually, screen glowing, camera aimed. Let's film it. Caption it, fake seal kids cry. Lily curled inward, turning away, not shielding herself. She wouldn't give them that. She just wanted the night over. Behind them, footsteps sounded quiet, even. Someone felt the change, not because it got louder, but because the rhythm shifted. The door at the end of the hallway opened without a word. The boy's phone slowly lowered. The girl turned first. The adults hadn't noticed, not yet. But Lena had. A presence filled the open doorway, outlined by the dim corridor glow. Still, unmoving, Captain Elias Vance had arrived. Elias didn't slam the door, didn't raise her voice. She simply entered. Her hair was still damp from a quick rinse after drills. Casual training clothes clung faintly to the sheen on her arms. No rank markings. No combat boots. Just a dark ash hoodie, slate joggers, and eyes trained to read every corner of a space without effort. She saw her daughter first, not the scraped leg, not the scattered papers, not the phone abandoned nearby. Just Lena seated against the lockers, mouth pressed tight, sleeve darkened where tears had been wiped away. Elias didn't hesitate, didn't ask for details, didn't need them. She crossed the room, neither hurried nor slow, and knelt beside Lena, resting a steady hand on her shoulder. "Hey," she said softly. "You all right?" Lena nodded once, though her chin quivered. Elias lowered her voice further. "What happened?" "They said," Lena whispered. "You weren't real." Elias's jaw tightened, but she showed no outward reaction. Her gaze dropped, taking in the shoe print on Lena's leg, the loose pages, the crushed folder. "Are you hurt?" she asked. Lena gave a small nod. "Just my leg. It's fine." Elias breathed out through her nose, then she stood. Everything after that unfolded without sound. She bent, gathered the wrinkled pages with deliberate precision, squared them against her thigh, and slid them neatly back into the folder. She returned it to Lena with care, then stepped forward. Her voice wasn't loud. It wasn't sharp. It was controlled. "Which one of you," Elias said evenly, "put hands on my daughter?" The hallway seemed to contract. No reply. One military father stiffened but stayed silent. The teenage boy slipped his phone behind his back like a child caught cheating. The other mothers instinctively edged behind their spouses. "I asked a question," Elias said again. No louder, no harsher, just clearer. "Who touched my daughter?" Still nothing. But the air shifted. Elias didn't lean in, didn't posture. She simply stood tall, shoulders squared, arms relaxed at her sides. And somehow that presence carried more weight than shouting ever could. The boy swallowed. The first military father stepped forward slightly, attempting to reclaim control. "This is being blown out of proportion." "No one meant any harm." Elias turned her head just enough to fix him in her stare. "No one meant any harm," she repeated. "Then why is my child on the floor with a bruise and a torn folder?" He flinched. She wasn't just a mother, and now they were realizing it far too late. The man lifted his chin, trying to reassert authority. He was large, broad-chested, arms crossed wide in a practiced stance. His voice stayed calm, but it was overly polished. "Ma'am," he said, "this is a misunderstanding. Nobody was trying to hurt your kid." Elias didn't blink. "She has a boot print on her shin." One of the mothers laughed nervously. "Kid's roughhouse, you know how it is." Elias stepped forward, not aggressively, just with intention. "So you're saying the bruise was accidental?" "She's exaggerating," the boy muttered from behind his father. Elias ignored him. Her eyes returned to the man. "You're military," she said. "Retired senior NCO," he straightened. 23 years. "Service branch?" she asked. "Marines," she nodded once. "Then you should have known better." Another father moved in beside the first. "Hold on, who are you supposed to be?" Elias kept her tone flat. "Her mother." One of the mothers scoffed. "We figured that out. What's your point showing up late and acting tough?" Another chimed in. "Army Reserve or something. You don't get to order us around." Elias's jaw shifted slightly, like a lock turning into place. Her voice stayed calm. She looked at the boy. "You kicked her." He shook his head quickly. "She ran into me." Elias stepped forward, knelt again, and gently rolled up the cuff of Lena's jeans. A red mark spread across the front of her shin, clean, straight, unmistakable. Elias stood, folder still in hand. That's a tread pattern. The first father moved closer, not violent but deliberate, stepping into her space, chest puffed out. You need to calm down, ma'am. Elias didn't step back, didn't flinch. She inclined her head just slightly, her tone calm, polished, almost gentle. Are you attempting to scare me? No one's doing that. He snapped back, volume climbing. If that's your intention, she went on, you should reconsider. You're already late to the situation. There was no menace in her posture, no clenched jaw, no aggressive step. But something in her delivery made the air tighten. People shifted without realizing why. The second military father tried again. Ma'am, we didn't know she was your daughter. Tessa's gaze never wavered. You shouldn't have needed to. For a heartbeat, the corridor felt claimed, like it answered to her presence alone. The first military father advanced half a step. His voice slid into that clipped command tone used when confidence outruns clarity. You need to watch how you speak, he warned. Tessa didn't blink. Didn't move. Wrong person, she said. That was when he crossed the line. He reached out. Palm open, fingers grazing her arm as if to steer her aside. Not violent, not harsh, just contact. Tessa reacted. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't loud. It was precise. Her foot shifted behind his leg, her hand locked onto his wrist in a seamless motion. His own forward push worked against him. She didn't hurl him. She redirected him. His balance collapsed. His body struck the lockers hard enough to echo through the hall. A sharp intake of breath came from the doorway. The teenage girl stumbled back. The boy froze, caught between helping and fleeing. The other military mother shouted, "What was that?" and surged forward, reaching for Tessa's shoulder. Tessa sidestepped with effortless control. One smooth turn. The woman overreached, stumbled, and caught herself against the wall just in time. Now the teenage boy stepped up, fists tight, face flushed. Before he could move, Tessa raised her hand. Not to strike, but to occupy space. Go ahead, she said quietly. He didn't, he couldn't. The man on the floor groaned, dragging himself upright, breath ragged. Who are you? Tessa released his wrist with deliberate calm and stepped back. Commander Tessa Hale, she said. United States Navy SEAL. 20 years active duty, currently assigned to Naval Training Command. Silence swallowed the hallway. Even the lights felt dimmer under the weight of it. The second father opened his mouth, then closed it again. The mother stood motionless. The teenager's hands dropped as if they'd suddenly lost purpose. Tessa didn't posture or savor it. She turned, returned to her daughter, and crouched beside her. Are you all right? Lena nodded, eyes wide, not frightened but stunned. Because the woman standing there wasn't a rumor or an exaggeration, she was real. And now everyone knew. The door at the far end of the hall swung open. Miss. Grant emerged, clipboard still in hand, concern replacing her earlier smile. She'd heard the noise. The impact. The silence afterward. Her pace changed when she took it in. Tessa calm and steady, one parent clutching his side, Lena seated against the lockers. Lena, she asked quickly. What happened? Tessa rose slowly and answered before anyone else could. My daughter was surrounded, she said evenly. Harassed, hit, recorded, and mocked for being honest about who I am. Miss Grant blinked, processing. Her gaze shifted to the boy holding the phone. Is that accurate? No one responded. Then a quiet student farther down the hall, the one who'd stayed silent all evening, raised his hand halfway. They kicked her, he said. I saw it. Tessa folded her arms, not threatening, but restrained. Miss Grant's voice hardened. All of you. Staff room, now. Excuses started forming, misunderstandings. Just jokes. She cut them off. I don't want explanations. I want written statements. Separate seating. This will be handled properly. Tessa looked down at Lena and gave her a subtle nod. A counselor arrived moments later, summoned by a student aide. She knelt beside Lena, voice gentle. May I sit with you? Lena nodded, eyes never leaving her mother. The counselor smiled reassuringly. Miss Grant turned back to Tessa. I'm truly sorry, she said quietly. We'll begin a formal report immediately. Good, Tessa replied, voice low, because if it happens again, she didn't finish. She didn't have to. The weight of the unspoken filled the space. The teenage boy stared down at his phone, thumb hovering uncertainly. Tessa stepped forward. Let me see that. He handed it over. 2 taps. Delete. Confirm. She returned it without comment. Miss Grant whispered, "We'll take care of this." Tessa nodded once. "Make sure you do." Behind her, Lena finally lifted her head from the counselor's shoulder. Her eyes were steady now. Not rigid, but controlled. Because the school wasn't witnessing a punishment, they were witnessing a recalibration. They sat in the staff room like students summoned after a bad decision. 2 former Army dads beside each other, saying nothing. Their wives across from them, eyes fixed anywhere but faces. The teen who had thrown the kick sat closest to the exit, phone turned over on his thigh, his leg bouncing with nerves. Leora didn't sit. She stayed near the doorway, arms folded, a presence too big for the room to hold. Not furious, just steady, worn from experience because she'd done this more times than she wished. It was Army Dad number 1 who finally cleared his throat and lifted his gaze. "We're sorry," he muttered. "Shouldn't have accused her of lying." Leora didn't respond. She angled her head toward Arya, who sat on a bench with her counselor. Arya's legs were crossed, her folder flattened neatly beside her. She looked more like herself again. "Do you want to hear them say it to you?" Leora asked, voice carrying easily across the room. Arya gave a small, unsure nod. Leora turned back. "Then say it again." Army Dad Caro exhaled like the apology cost him something. "Arya, we're sorry. We were wrong." The Army moms attempted to soften it, but the words rang hollow. "She startled us. She should have said it differently." Leora stepped forward. "You don't get to rewrite what happened," she said. "You mocked a child, then you let your son put his hands on her because you figured no one would notice." The teenage boy flushed scarlet. "I didn't mean to hurt her." "You did," Leora replied. "You just didn't expect consequences." Army Mom 1 opened her mouth, but Leora cut her off. "This isn't your unit. This isn't a base. And your ranks, medals, deployments, none of them give you permission to belittle a kid." One of the dads mumbled, "We didn't know she was yours." Leora's voice stayed level, but the temperature dropped. "You shouldn't need to know who someone belongs to in order to treat them with dignity." No one protested. The teacher stood by quietly, watching the truth rebalance the room. Leora turned back to Arya, crouching so their eyes met. "You spoke honestly," she said gently. "That's what they couldn't handle, and that isn't your burden." Arya's eyes grew glossy but didn't break. She leaned forward, lightly resting her forehead on her mother's shoulder. Leora held her a few steady seconds, then rose. And in that instant, no one doubted who held the real weight in the room. The PTA meeting was officially postponed. Mrs. Ellery delivered the announcement quickly, her voice tight with embarrassment, telling parents it would be rescheduled. Most didn't ask why. Hallway whispers had already carried the truth. A few staff stayed behind gathering chairs, but the rest vacated quickly, like the building inhaled after a storm. Leora walked beside Arya, her hand resting softly on her daughter's shoulder. She didn't need to direct her. Arya moved with her now, strides even, gaze forward. Her folder tucked neatly in her arm. As they approached the open staff room door, mumbled apologies followed them out. Awkward, hushed voices from people who finally realized the line they'd crossed. One of the Army dads gave a slow nod without lifting his eyes. The teenage boy looked ready to vanish. Neither Leora nor Arya slowed. They didn't need more words. Outside, the air was cooler. Leaves scraped across the parking lot as dusk settled behind the school's flagpole. The lights flicked on with a faint buzz. Somewhere nearby, a car door slammed and an engine turned over. Arya spoke first. "Did I do something wrong?" Leora didn't respond immediately. She waited until they reached the car, unlocked it with a soft chirp, and opened the passenger door. "No," she said. "You told the truth." They just weren't ready for it. Arya climbed in, setting her folder on her lap. Leora moved around to the driver's side, started the engine, adjusted the mirror. They sat quietly for a moment, letting the air settle around them. "Are you mad at them?" Arya asked. Leora let out a slow breath. "No. Not really." "Why not?" "Because they already learned what they needed to." Arya nodded, eyes on the dashboard. "You didn't yell at them." "I didn't have to." Leora turned toward her, voice soft but absolute. "Next time someone calls you a liar," she said, "let me deal with the adults." Arya smiled faintly. Not big, but lasting, they reversed out of the lot. Before turning, Leora slowed and glanced toward the school entrance. The army dad who laughed first stood there, arms crossed, watching them leave. He didn't wave and didn't sneer. Instead, he dipped his head once, a quiet acknowledgement. Leora didn't return it. She simply turned the wheel and drove on, her daughter safe beside her, her silence heavier than any speech in that room. What would you do if someone kicked your child for telling the truth? Do you think those parents got the outcome they deserved? Tell me your thoughts in the comments. I read them all. And if this story reminded you what real discipline looks like, hit the like button, subscribe, and tap the bell. Share this with someone who still believes silence equals weakness. Your next story's already on screen. Watch it now, and I'll see you tomorrow, same time, same place.